Welcome to day one of the Texas Soccer Summit. My name is Phil West. You may know me from various Striker Texas articles. We are here for this, what I think is going to be a fantastic panel today. We are still awaiting our third guest, but we have two guests here to talk a little bit about supporters culture and how Texas soccer fandom and MLS soccer fandom is being influenced by these groups that represent Austin FC, FC Dallas, and Houston Dynamo in the stands and in the community. So wanted to introduce our guests. First, we have Ensign, who is one of the leaders over at Los Verdes, of course, representing Austin FC in the Verde Wall, or whatever we might be calling it. So I don't think we're 100% settled on a name yet, but she's already rocking an away jersey. And then we have Stephen Gold, who is with Dallas Beer Guardians, which is a long-established FC Dallas group that if you plug my book here, The United States of Soccer, I talked to the founder who had a Drunk FC banner that he was hoisting from their beer garden during the games, and it evolved into the Dallas Beer Guardians. So welcome both of you. And we're still hoping to get Jeff Bonilla from the Surge to represent the Dynamo, but for now we've got Austin and Dallas in the house. So yeah, I wanted to start just by letting each of you talk a couple of minutes about just kind of y'all's origin stories, and then how you see yourself fitting into the landscape. Because I know that there are, with both the teams as well as with Houston, there are other SGs, but what y'all are doing is integral to the overall fan experience. So Katie, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay, thanks for the welcome, Phil. So yeah, I'm Katie. I'm representing Los Verdes here today. In terms of the origin story, I guess I would say Los Verdes started in 2020, kind of in the middle of the pandemic. It was formed out of kind of a split with Austin Anthem, which is another supporters group on the scene here in Austin. So we have, those two. We have La Murga de Austin, which is kind of a band that we want to represent the whole section. So there's like people from various SGs in there. And then there's also some smaller SGs like Ogarmi New Braunfels, for example. So Los Verdes is a pretty big chunk people-wise. And it's been an amazing ride. I've been around kind of since the beginning of the formation, and to go from just like a handful of my buddies to today where, I'll go places and see somebody wearing our SG gear that I don't know still feels kind of weird to me. So, yeah, I would say it was a pretty surreal first season in terms of growth. And it's just been really exciting to see people make it their own, because, we want this to be bigger than any one person's vision or one SG or anything like that. And I think there's been a lot of people in Austin that have just kind of taken this and run with it. So it's just been incredible to see people bringing their talents and their skills to the table and turning Austin fandom into something that I think is pretty representative of what I know about the city, a creative city, a lot of just weird and funny things going on. So yeah, I'm happy to be a part of the Verde Wall, or whatever it is that we're calling it until we settle on an official name. And yeah, I think, did I answer all your questions, Phil? Anything else?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, also one of the most probably epic Slack channels in sports, I would say. And then, can you just give a sense of like how many people are now members?
We have about 2,000 members right now. Yeah,
Oh,
so, and we have a Slack group that Phil was referencing with that many people in it. So it's pretty fun, a pretty lively discussion of when matches are happening, kind of the game chat for that, and when trade rumors are happening. And we do things like we've been organizing meeting the new players at the airport and trying to predict the path that they would take from whatever country they're coming from. So yeah, we have a pretty lively group that is all in, and it really is a joy to be a part of it.
Awesome. And Stephen, let's hear a little Dallas Beer Guardians and how y'all got started, aside from what I teased, and then just how things have evolved and where you're all at now.
No doubt, no doubt. Thanks, Phil, and thank you to the Striker for setting this up and inviting me today. So, as an organization, like you said, it basically started with a flag that was left in the garden, and which is the north. If anybody's ever been to Toyota, what's now Toyota Stadium, it's the north, that whole north end of the stadium. And so, it just evolved from there. When the Inferno, who was the original supporters group, I guess shut their doors. It turned into El Matador, and I believe they're celebrating number 13, lucky number 13 year, and DBG is in our 11th year in 2022. So I personally joined, I think in 2015. I can't remember if it was 2014 or 2015. So, but yeah, our big thing is on game day. We have that tailgate in the red lot. We partner with local companies to help put that on, free of charge to everybody. All are welcome. Just that that open community atmosphere, and I think that's really what attracted me personally to it. Was just how welcoming everybody was, and how open everybody was to all people participating, and kind of the idea of, if you want to do something, take it and make it your own. And that's what got me into it. Was I had friends that played soccer growing up. I played lacrosse growing up, and they were always showing me, Champions League finals and all these great European matches, and just the displays that they were able to put on. And so shortly after I was joining DBG, we were painting some of those playoff tifos, and we got a net, and we were able to do some really cool and dynamic things in the garden. Unfortunately, the garden closed a couple years ago through a decision, I guess, quasi through the FO, and we're now in that southwest corner, which we call the Rhine, after Bobby Rhine, our club legend and first club ambassador. So yeah, that's where we're at. Just sort of a brief progression of sort of how we got here, and I think that's the big thing for me. Like I said, is just that community aspect. Unfortunately, we haven't done as much as recently as we have in the past. But another thing that I really enjoyed was the giving back. That's one thing that I've always tried to do, is some type of community service, and I think that all of the groups for all the clubs do a pretty good job of realizing that we are a community. We need to participate in the community, and we need to give back, right? So it's not just about soccer; it's about our home.
Yeah, for sure. And then just how many members would you say in DPG right now?
It fluctuates, man. I think at the lowest point I saw it was down around like 120 or so. Typically we're in that 2 to 250 range. So.
Okay. Cool. Yep. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit first of all, and I'll just open this up to both of you. Whoever wants to take it first. How did 2021 go? We're going to be doing a panel a little bit later about how Texas teams can improve in 2022, which is something I am sure that you're both cognizant of. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then just real quick. So if we don't get Houston in, it's kind of three big groups to look at with the Dynamo. There is Texian Army, which is kind of an older, more established group. There's El Batallon, which does a lot of the music that you'll hear in Dynamo, and then there's the Surge SG, which is kind of a newer group, and that's who we're hoping to get Jeff to represent if Jeff shows. But for now, let's have Katie and Stephen talk about 2021, a year to remember and a year to forget, maybe.
Katie, tell us about
So
Austin's
Katie,
first
I guess
year. How'd it go?
Okay, I can go first. Austin's first year was a whirlwind. There were so many incredible things about it. Obviously, the on-the-field results left a lot to be desired. But I think I will remember it as a year that the community really came to rally around the team. And I think the level of excitement that we had, even despite the results and the support that we have for the players, I hope that carries us into the future. I mean, you never know what the future is going to bring, but based on the reactions from this season, when we're getting reinforcements and preparing for this new season, where I think hopefully we're going to be better, you just see how excited, like if we were this excited last year, how much more excited we'll be this year. But in terms of the year, I just wanted to bring up one incident. In the second match of the season was in Denver, and that was the first match that we were able to bring a real fan section to a game, because our opener was in LA, and I was there, and a few other people were too, but we had to mortgage our house to afford those tickets, and not a ton of the fan base got to go. So The Denver game was our first opportunity to really see the team in person. All these people that have been behind the scenes, going to City Hall and doing all these things, coming to the groundbreaking of the stadium. It was the first chance to really see the team play, and it was just an incredible experience to be able to watch the first goal in Austin FC history by Diego Fagundes, and our first win in club history with 3-1 victory. And it was nice of them to wait till the second half to score so it could be right in front of the away fans' faces the whole time. So I think to me that crystallized, like, no matter what happened in 2021, we still had our firsts, and we had the joy of seeing what this was about and coming together and meeting people from all over the country, honestly, that are supporting the club. So I would say it was a tough season for sure, especially in some of those away matches that I went to that were not not great. But still, we were together, and you can kind of see that we're building something that I hope will last through bad seasons and good seasons.
Yeah, and I think one of the remarkable things about the season too was that the first home game wasn't until mid-June. So you had the 17 home games compressed in between mid-June and November. And so obviously there was a tifo for the first match. There were, tifos for a couple of others, and so obviously kind of the work that goes into that, and then just also, yeah, once the season started rolling, like it really started rolling, and there were midweek games and all that. But just from personal experience, from having been in the stadium, just knowing the volume and the energy that the fans were creating was just incredible from the first match out. So, and I was actually in the supporter section for the July 1st match against Portland, where the first goal got scored by an Austin player in Q2 history in the third home game. So quite a lot of anticipation and quite a lot of build up to that. And when it finally happened, it was pretty impressive. It was quite the explosion of joy and of course beer, which is something that is also Austin fans are also becoming known for the beer showers.
Yeah, I would say it was just so wild not knowing what to expect as is being a new team and not having done tifo before, not having done away trips before. I mean, obviously we have some people who have participated in things like that for other teams or other leagues and things, but still to do it for the first time ourselves and for it to be COVID and our stadium was being built, it was just, I would say, chaos. It felt absolutely chaotic. And so this year, going into it, actually knowing the schedule more than 2 weeks before the first match and being able to plan out our tifos a little more, being able to plan out away travel more than 4 days in advance. I think that Denver game that we brought 300 people to, I posted the link for the tickets to that on the Tuesday before the Saturday of the match. So we were just absolutely reeling the whole. It was like you just, once it started rolling, it never stopped, and we didn't take a breath until November. And so I think now we're kind of in that phase where we're able to reset a little bit and think about, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what do we want to do more of, how do we cultivate the best parts about last year, and how do we shore up some of the things that were hard, or things that didn't go as well. So yeah, it was just an incredible learning experience being part of the first season, and I hope that we can take some of that learning into this next season, and things are already going a little bit smoother as we've worked out some of these processes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And we'll talk about kind of 22 in a second here. But Stephen, yeah, I just wanted to get your reflections on 21 and how that went, and what in particular, DVG and by extension El Matador did.
Yeah, I think for us it was really a more of a bounce back, right? Such a weird kind of doldrums feel to the 3-1 COVID season and just all that stuff. People not going to games and just not being unable, just being physically unable to participate in a number of things that create supporters culture, right? So we were all kind of
Yeah,
doing our
and y'all weren't
best to
even in
reflect
MLS
on.
back, so
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was actually thinking about that yesterday on the way back. Like, yeah, I mean, that was just such a weird setup, right? Like, we played a bunch of teams like 3 times. It was just It was wild. And so, we have, I guess, a first and a new supporter section, which is nice. There's definitely some benefits there right next to the players and the shade, and we can be heard a lot better and participate with the crowd a lot more. And so there's a lot of good there. It's tough to see the garden closed, but we are definitely making progress in the Rhine. And I think that's kind of what we started doing after that 2020 season is we just took a look back and said, what did our groups do well? What do we need to do to be ready to just fire right off the blocks? And so, I couldn't be prouder of both groups for just coming out and, doing just pushing the boundaries as much as possible, right? And we weren't able to do probably all the things that we wanted to, but we were able to do a lot of new things. And that's exciting. And so we've taken that momentum. And obviously, anybody who's seen one tweet from the club knows it's a new era for them. And I think that we're sort of experiencing that a little bit on our side too, right? Like the synergy between the groups, the location, the involvement with the fans that, just wasn't there being secluded in the garden. It's great to see. And don't get me wrong, there were a lot of bumps last year for sure. There was a lot of kinks to be ironed out. There were a lot of things and conversations we had to be on, with the front office and security and all this and that. But that's what happens when when you uproot a whole section and stick it in another part of the stadium. So got a lot of that put to bed towards the end of the year. Had a lot of open conversation with a number of the members of the front office. They've sort of, realigned the people who support us, added more people. So I think it's going to be a great year moving forward. But yeah, 2021 was definitely like what can we do to bounce back? And I couldn't have been prouder of both groups for the effort they put in. And for the people, the members to come out and, just like we didn't miss a beat after 2 years for some people more, and it's just great to see that the club matters like that, and people are going to show up and continue to show up, and obviously it won't be the same, but it will definitely be better for going through that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been in those north end bleachers and just kind of seeing that versus what y'all in the front office were eventually able to evolve in terms of the safe standing section in the Rhine. I mean, it seems like just in terms of people not getting hurt standpoint, like that's probably a lot better solution in a way, right? So, although I do have to say, I mean, you were probably there for the Dallas Seattle playoff game a few years back where they had the PK sequence down at that end, and that was a pretty electric experience. That was like easily one of the
Yeah.
craziest MLS matches I've ever been to, or maybe craziest match ever.
Yeah, I mean, great memories in the garden, and parading the U.S. Open Cup around and getting to touch it and high five the players. And I mean, that's for us, that's home, right? But and who knows, maybe what happens right moving forward. But we love where we're at. We love the energy we were able to create last year, and there's just so many new things that we can do there. And that I think what we didn't get done last year, like we've really been busting our hump to get done, even in these preseason matches against Houston, against San Antonio. Like we're using that as our preseason, right? Like we want to test out these new things. We want to take an opportunity that we maybe didn't get to last year or couldn't. So yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of growth again this year for us in that regard. But just the way that everybody bounced back and like I said, just came firing out of the blocks, it was great to see. It was great to see.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, let's get a little bit of back and forth here going. So, just wanted to have a conversation about just again, kind of thinking about the creation of atmosphere and what are the things that you've kind of most noticed. I mean, again, not only from what you're doing in your own stadium, but having been able to experience maybe some away day matches last year. Kind of what things were you seeing there? Because I mean, certainly we can start with obviously this kind of burgeoning rivalry that's happening between these two Texas teams, right? So I mean, clearly, Austin took some big contingents up to Frisco. Frisco brought some big contingents down to Austin, and some pretty epic matches ensued last year as a result. And I anticipate that there's probably going to be more of the same this year.
I think the thing for
Whoever
me
wants
is
to
just, yeah, for me, it's about just like the explosion of senses, right? Like the visual component, the auditory component, like all of those things, just overloading people with that, right? Like who can be the loudest, who can make the most ungodly racket available, but also like I said, for me, the big thing is just those tifo displays, regardless of if it's a painted mural or whatever, right? Like there's so many different ways to do that, and to me, I think that's what's great is, you can make it unique in that regard. You can get whole stadium involvement in that regard. You can make it just the supporters groups. And, I think that's kind of how I described it when they first came up to that first game is everybody's like, why are we marching in early? And I was like, well, they're going to be up there making a whole hell of a lot of racket at the gates, and we need to be up there making a whole hell of a lot more racket at the gates. And so that's just the way it's got to be. And so everybody's like, all right, like, let's go. But yeah, from those pregame marches to unfurling the massive tifos to, all those things, coordinated chants, everything, that's it for me. That's when the hairs start to stand up on the back of your neck and on your forearms. Right. And, that's also how we compete. To me, that's how we compete, right? Like the club does their part on the field and we do our part in the stands to make sure everybody knows who we are and why we're there. So.
Okay, and Katie, things you've seen, things you've noticed?
Yeah, I totally agree about tifo and things like that. The LA Galaxy game where we had our Selena tifo, I feel like that brought up the energy a lot. Like I was already excited about it, and but I was really involved, and to see people who really didn't know it was going to happen and the excitement that that generated, I think that really kind of brings up the level of investment. Like this is a big deal. We're taking this game really seriously, and people kind of on the edge of their seats. And it's speaking of that, it has been really nice to see the some of the games at Q2 where we have the whole stadium on their feet, and we're trying to get more of the whole stadium involved in chants and things like that as well. I know La Murga has been working to get the QR code on the jumbotron so people can scan it, and we want to get more fans involved with what we're doing in the South End. Not like, oh, look at those crazy people, but like these are our songs, and we want it to be for everyone. So I know they've also been kind of taking some suggestions and things like that because we really are a blend of all kinds of influences in Austin. We have a lot of transplants from all over the world, and we want people to feel seen and involved in everything that we do. So that there's certain different types of chants and different types of just ways of being a fan. So yeah, I've been impressed with seeing how seriously our fans take all of this. It is not easy or fun to take 1,000 fans to Frisco. We had so many bus problems, and it it was it was such a logistical nightmare. But to see people really, they wanted to be there, and they were excited to be there, and people have to make the sacrifices to be there and be chanting and all that for all these matches. Like they really have to believe it. And we're lucky that we have so many people that are so all in that they're getting tattoos and they're meeting our players at the airport at 2 a.m. So I think as an SG, what I want is to always try to make more opportunities for more people to get involved, because the way that this works, people get burned out. There's so much to do. It's a lot. You have your phases of life where maybe you have a kid or you start a new job, or you can't always be dedicating 100% of your life to supporter stuff. But I think the more people that we can involve and make leaders in the domains of things they're interested in, like music or tifo or whatever, then it can outlast all of us and it can become bigger than all of us. So that's my hope for the future, and that's what we're trying to do, and we'll see if we can do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I mean, you're talking about just kind of people burning out just because of the sheer kind of effort and energy that it takes. And then obviously, and unlike what some people might think about supporters, they are unpaid. The front office does not foot the bills for what they do, so it's all very much, independent. And I think that and we might talk about that later. That's kind of an interesting, kind of thing to explore, just kind of relationships between front offices and supporters culture, because sometimes obviously that can be very mutual, beneficial, symbiotic, and other times it can be adversarial. So, and it just kind of depends on the club and the history. I mean, there's not kind of like one front office to supporters relationship template. I mean, it just really depends on the club, and it really depends on the people that are in the supporters group. Going back to one thing that you had said, Katie, talking about the Selena tifo. One of the things that really impressed me about that was not only was that a celebration of somebody who is iconic in Texas, but also the Cinco Uno Dos chant is, for people who don't know, it's actually a Selena song that's been reappropriated, and y'all went into that chant as the tifo was going up, which I thought was a really impressive integration of the audio and visual. So, again, to be commended on that, but also just in terms of what you're thinking about too. So, because again, I think that is one of the more identifiable chants. Like, I think if you're a first timer coming to Q2, like, all the lyrics to Verde Negro is going to be really, really difficult. But all right, all right, all right, Cinco Uno Dos. I mean, those are things that fans can latch on to. So I'm kind of curious about that aspect of it as well. And we can talk about this back and forth a little bit. Just kind of what is the balance between making things accessible and easy for the audience, and then also being creative, right? So, because certainly you could break out, we love you, we love you, we love you, right? But also you're breaking out, we love you, we love you, we love you, and everybody's like heard that for 10 or 15 years, right? So talk about kind of that balance between kind of bringing the new, but then also trying to integrate fans to the process.
Yeah, I think it's something where you just can't give up any ideas, right? Oh, we tried this in the past. Let's try it again. This worked. This didn't work. Like, what what what's the temperature of everybody outside of the section, and what's the easiest way for them to right? So we want to make sure that that's at the forefront of their mind if they want to participate. But hey, if you don't want to sing, try to clap along, whatever, right? So that's what I found is you can't ever really discard any ideas, because what didn't work a couple years ago, let's give it a go now, right? And there's going to be a different fan base outside of, even within the supporter section, right? I mean, that there's always that little bit of churn. You have new people, you have people that grow up and change and all that. So you never know what's, you want to keep a hold of the good ideas, but you never want to discard any of them, is what I found, right? So, and we've tried the same thing, right? We give out, a DVG sticker that has the QR code at the bottom. We slap all those in the rind, and I think that's kind of the easiest way. And one of the things that we receive feedback from the club around whenever they talk to season ticket members about, like, hey, can we get a chant sheet? Can we get some kind of something out there, right? So just getting it in them in sort of like a bite-sized digestible piece, and getting that in front of people and staying in front of them too is really the main thing. I was really excited to see EM push out this stadium-wide chant. So something they were working with Andrew Luis, who's the president of EM, and Andrew Gerbosi, who you referenced earlier, the president of DBG, worked to push this out for the San Antonio game. And I think it's simple, it's easy, and it works. So I think it'll be really great to see that all fired up, and I think we can all agree, like, when the team's up 3-0, everybody's in there and everybody's doing the thing, right? It's when we're not, that's when it's important and when we got to go to work. So it's our job to show consistency in that regard and show people you can constantly have a good time and support your team and be upbeat. But yeah, I think those are kind of the biggest things from my experience, just participating in leadership, is like, we can't ever discard any ideas. We got a couple that work and that are good go-tos, but it's like, let's just try it again. Let's give it a year. Let's try it again, whatever it takes. So timing's a little bit of it too, right? You gotta know when to strike. But yeah, I think those are kind of my biggest takeaways.
Okay.
One thing I've been thinking about while we've been talking about this is how impossible it is to please everybody, and how hard that's been, at least for me, in this last year. Going from being a really small fan group where you just have a couple people that are crazy enough to be talking about the MLS team that's maybe coming in many years, to now where you have all these fans. It's just, I'm used to smaller groups and really being able to build consensus and being like, okay, we're doing this. And now that we have so many voices, just inevitably some people are going to hate some chants. And I know that there's an infamous Austin FC Facebook group that decided our McCalla chant was cursed, and everybody's talking about the curse of McCalla. And sometimes the timing of chants can be bad, where I think it was actually the Frisco 5-3 match where we were playing Cuervos and we were getting to the part where everybody goes crazy, and it's like Frisco scores right at that moment. And so then it's like, well, what do we do? And so the song continued, and then it became like, oh, why does Austin play when we get scored on? And it was just unfortunate. So yeah, it's just been interesting and hard navigating how do we serve the community, but also like taking with a grain of salt that like there's going to be somebody that hates literally everything that we do. And also like we have a lot of online haters, which I think I'm not saying you should always forget your haters, because sometimes people are pointing out something really important, but also just like if you're going to do something well in the supporters community, there's going to be people that show up to just like poke at you. So it's, yeah, like what does this really mean? That we have a lot of haters. Sometimes things are wrong. Sometimes we should fix things. Other times it's just we need to ignore it. And how do you decide what the majority of people actually want when you just have a handful of people that are screaming at the top of their lungs that a song is cursed or something? So that's just been a challenge to kind of remember, like, this community is so much bigger than the couple of people that you hear talking about one thing or another, and trying to be diligent about actually getting feedback from all of our membership and not just like letting the narrative be dictated by whoever's mad about something today. Because yeah, and to me, what brings it back when we're losing or when things aren't going well is is kind of centering on what is it that we're really trying to do here? And I think for Los Verdes, our motto is Fútbol y Comunidad, and thinking about the comunidad part, what are we doing for our community? Who are we to this community? And regardless of, if you hate our chants or if you think that, our supporters are just trying to take selfies and they don't actually know about proper football, whatever. But if you look at what we're doing for our community, there's nothing you can say, that we're not doing that. So I was just looking up. I think we raised $20,000 for nonprofits in Austin this year, or in 2021, and I'm just so proud of that. And I'm so excited that we've been able to have this power that I didn't ever have access before, to like shine a light on things that we care about in our community, and direct volunteers and finances and stuff to support things that we care about. And so at the end of the day, regardless of the results, or even if like our tifo is coolest or not, or our songs are the best or not, we have each other, and we have what we're doing for our city. And I think that has to be enough. And when you focus on that, then these other things kind of come out naturally. Like the Selena tifo, for example, it's like we have a lot of people who, like me and Selena, are Tex-Mex, and it comes from the heart, that tifo came from the heart. And I think just focusing on like, who are we, who do we want to serve, what are we doing here in Austin, what do we want to be known as in the city, and then letting our members and their passions and their backgrounds kind of dictate the decisions we make artistically and creatively with songs and all that, then it becomes hopefully something that the community can latch onto, not just like a production where we're saying, oh, this is what Austin is. We don't want to try to pretend like we can dictate what our city's about, but just the more people we can incorporate, then hopefully we have an accurate reflection of who we are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and something, there was a lot there to dig through. One thing I wanted to latch onto though was talking about the online haters. And I mean, like I kind of harken back to, I guess it was last May or June, when I kind of inadvertently brought some of that on by documenting some of the practice that was happening. And I mean, that practice
Yeah.
was, again, I mean, joyful to me, because it was like the first time that a lot of these people had seen each other in over a year because of COVID and everybody staying in. There was finally an occasion to be there. But then also, here are these people that are working on their craft, and they've got the front office bought in enough to let them use the stadium. and I did not expect the reaction that happened at all in that. But yeah, but I mean, like to what you're saying in the later point too. I mean, a lot of this is about community rights, and a lot of this is about, at the end of the day, these are people that are brought together by soccer, but through a lot of disparate walks of life where they might have not encountered each other otherwise, and they're in it for love of the game and love of the particular team and a love of that kind of communal experience that you can have in a stadium 17 times a year in MLS, right? So to me, I mean, that's really an important element of it. I wanted to talk a little bit about just kind of your travels elsewhere. Katie, you had mentioned Denver and just kind of the amazing turnout that happened there and kind of the back and forth, but just kind of some of your other kind of away day experiences like over the year and past years, and just kind of what you see from the supporters community in general. Because I mean, again, obviously it is a big, broad community with a lot of obviously different histories. There are SGs that have been around since the 90s when MLS first started that had their origins in Sam's Army, even like pre-American Outlaws, and then there's groups that are obviously much newer, right? So, but it's all kind of part of this fabric of creating this kind of unique American soccer fandom, right? Because I mean, what happens in MLS and USL, I don't think necessarily happens in other countries to quite the degree that it does, or quite the character that it does. So just wanted to hear a little bit about just kind of away day experience that you've had, things you've seen that you've liked, kind of reactions that you've had, interactions that you've had.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm kind of the away travel coordinator for Los Verdes. So I have been really involved in planning for our away matches and traveling and all these things. I think I went to 11 away matches last year, so not quite all of them, not on the Roma every game level, but I did get to go to a lot of MLS stadiums, and a lot of that was for the first time for me. I wasn't super involved in MLS before that when we didn't have a team here. So it was really interesting to see the various levels of support. One thing I wanted to point out was it really seemed to me like our fans vibed the best with other recent expansion teams. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of get a sense that there's, the MLS 1.0 teams, and they've been doing things for a long time, and they're like, we've been here, and then you're an upstart to them. And we're also doing things pretty differently, as things have changed over the years, and there's different places and things like that. So, yeah, if I had to pick, teams where we went and felt really welcomed, I would say that um, LAFC or Nashville or Minnesota, these teams that are somewhat new, and I think they remember what it's like to be the little brother of MLS and what it's like to be a new team and what it's like to lose. I mean, maybe not for LAFC, but for Minnesota. And we had we had just a good camaraderie with those fans, so that was kind of fun to share. But it was also fun to go to some legendary stadiums. Like I went to the Portland match, and that was my first time in that stadium. And it's a completely different experience to be in a 100-year-old stadium, and they kind of have an unconventional setup in terms of where the supporter section is and how they can hang tifo. And I think that's also really beautiful to see how it's persisted through the years, and to see a fan base that is really passionate, but in a very different way than ours, and it's culturally different than us. And I have a lot of respect for that. So it's been cool to just see the different ways that people interpret their fandom through the lens of their city and the demographics there and kind of the ages and stuff. And there is a huge amount of variety. But yeah, I do feel like we have the most in common with these other newbies. I don't know if just being a new team kind of attracts certain kinds of fans, or what. But yeah, I'm looking forward to new stadiums this year. Going to go to Atlanta and DC, and looking forward to seeing how things are different there too.
Yeah, and Stephen, on the other side of that, I mean, you're supporting a team that started in 1996 as the Dallas Burn. So, what can you say about kind of your experience with the way, and just kind of maybe with what Katie's saying about how there might be kind of is there really like a conscientiousness about MLS 1.0 that you've seen versus kind of the newer upstarts, as it were?
Unfortunately, my away travel has been pretty limited. I was able to go to Houston a couple times, and I went to Atlanta. My buddy was living out there, so very, very different. As far as like we think we only had probably like a dozen people for that Atlanta game, packed into their very first year of that stadium. So it was like setting MLS attendance records. So that was a very unique experience. But yeah, I think I'm looking forward this year to get up to Chicago, and I know they're in flux, but with the Brimstone Cup, and that finally being a thing again this year, really excited to try to get up there and make that one happen and participate there. I know they're again with sort of where their supporters groups are and with the stadium whole thing, it's they're kind of going through a revamp, rebrand, reimage, all that, but yeah, so I mean, as far as I know, and from what I've seen, and I know EM always has like a big trip every year where they go, and I think they're eyeing up Miami for the next one. So that'd be a good one to jump on as well. And I think they do a great job of sort of making those partnerships everywhere they go. For DBG, it's really about that ISC connection, and just touching base with whatever that local group or groups are. And everybody's always been extremely welcoming, right? So we don't always have a huge traveling contingent. It's kind of catch as catch can, but that's always our first move. That's our go-to, right? And so just being able to talk to them and partner with those groups and on game day and outside, it's always a great opportunity, right? Because I think like Katie referenced, right, like you get a little peek back behind the curtain of like what daily life is like in that city just by hanging out with those local supporters groups. So and you can kind of put your finger on the pulse of what that soccer community is like, and obviously you can talk all you want about the backstory with them, and they'll tell you everything they know. And for me, it's just about being there and experiencing it with them and sort of sharing in that, right? So yeah, I mean, away days to Houston are one thing, I think, and that's its own animal. And I missed, unfortunately, the ones to Austin last year. So looking forward to making all of the in Texas away travel this year, but and then that Chicago game. But like I said, I think that's our primary move, right? Is we establish a group of who's going to go. We reach out to those ISC groups and we partner with them to just share a little bit of the game day experience and talk shop before and maybe even after the match. So.
Yeah, so you had mentioned ISC at one point, so Independent Supporters Council. So I know that Bailey Brown, who was the DBG president, is the president of that, and she's been pretty involved on just again, kind of thinking about the sort of activism that supporters can do with front office, also with community, things of that nature. Because I mean, even though it is about the team and having fun and supporting, there are important issues in terms of just fan experience and just how front offices interact with all fans and with players and things like that do become of concern. So I wanted to talk to you about other just kind of important issues that you see in supporters culture in the community. And then we were talking about a little bit of the, just kind of the in-state rivalry stuff too. And I know that there's maybe thoughts that Katie has about some of that as well.
I think it kind of came to a head in Dallas. I mean, it's building around the league or whatever, right? But we had that incident right before Reggie moved to Boa Vista, right? And people were like throwing bottles on the field at our players for kneeling before the anthem, right? And that was sort of a catalyst of like, what, like, I hate to say it's not a with us or against us, but it kind of showed like, like nobody should, like nobody, you don't throw stuff at players on the field, and the club sort of, I would say, botched handling of their response to that. And so it was really sort of an eye-opening moment for a lot of people who, maybe weren't sure why we were getting involved in that as supporters groups, but when you look at that and you look at players and athletes of any sport and the stage that they have, we, at least in some measure, share that stage too. And so it's our job to stand up for what we feel is right. And that's, I mean, to me, that's about as cut and dry as it gets, right? It's again, it's our home, it's our community. You want it to be a place for everyone to enjoy. And like I said, when that incident happened, it was just, again, that was the year so many things were going on. But that happened towards the end of the year, and then all the information that came out afterwards, and you can kind of put the timeline together in reverse, and you just look at it and you're just like, I don't know. There was a lot of head scratching going on there. And like I said, I think it really kind of galvanized us here in Dallas. And it's one of those deals where it's like that's a clear situation that of what happened and sort of what was going on, and to us, like I said, we all kind of rallied behind Reggie and supported him, and it was such a weird, I don't know, it's such a weird deal. That whole thing was very, very odd, but to me it made it very, very plain, like, this is why we do it, right? If you ever had any questions about why does DVG do this, or why does DVG partner with this charity and yada yada yada, it's like, this is why. So
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that supporters groups, and I mean, you've seen it kind of league wide with the Iron Front thing a couple of years ago. You've seen kind of alarm around, the Proud Boys and the NYCFC fan base, that certainly that there are, maybe some tough decisions that the league and individual teams need to make to take right principled stands, and a lot of times, it will be the work of supporters groups that moves that forward. Certainly with the Iron Front stuff a couple of years ago, I mean, it was definitely the work of the ISC that allowed MLS to kind of evolve its position on that particular issue and those particular displays and what that was going on. Kate, I wanted you to get in here as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it's really powerful when supporters groups from different cities can kind of band together to make statements. Um, we did that a couple times in our first year that I think it worked out well. In the Portland game that I was talking about, we had a banner that said "Protect our players," and we coordinated with Timbers Army to kind of display that at a minute that they were also taking a pause. And um, I really like to be able to amplify messages when we can, to try to make it seem like, oh, this is not just a Portland problem, but we all care about this. We all want the league to be better. And then at the beginning of the season, we also made a statement in conjunction with Anthem about away ticket prices. I know that ours in Austin are the highest in the league, and um, for us, we really want to showcase our stadium, and we want people to visit us, and we want to create the best atmosphere that we can. And I think that it's better the more away fans that we can get in there. And as someone who has planned a lot of these trips, I understand how expensive it is to travel in the U.S. To take plane tickets. You have to get a hotel, all that, and then when our tickets are $60+ on top of that, that's a pretty tough bill. And all those people who travel are usually season ticket holders in their own stadiums too. So anyway, I have really liked our opportunities to participate in the bigger conversations about making the game more accessible to more fans, or making sure that principled stances are being taken when they need to be. I know we also supported ISC when the MLSPA put out their statement when they were doing their negotiations. So things like that, like, it's cool to be a part of and to be a voice as part of the whole. And I know that meeting these other supporters groups, we find out that we have a lot more in common than we have apart. And obviously there's the banter and there's a lot on the field stuff, but I think what we want is kind of the same: to grow the game, to have a really competitive environment, to just bring 100% to these matches. And I think a lot of these things that come out are barriers to the game growing in the US, whether it's just like corruption or just accessibility or issues like that. So yeah, I hope that we can continue to be one of the voices that's pushing the league and our front office in the direction that we want things to go, to make the game more accessible to people, and to feel that the league is really taking care of players and protecting players.
Great. So what kind of things do you want to maybe see and do in this coming year? I mean, for both of all, for first your particular stadiums, your particular fan bases, and then just kind of league wide, as things kind of continue to evolve. Because I mean, obviously, the last 2 years have been really, really strange with COVID, and there have been times where fan bases have been limited in terms of when they could go to the stadiums, but now, hopefully, COVID willing, there's going to be this kind of opening up and this kind of opportunity to reach more people, the coming year. I mean, obviously, Q2 had full stadiums like the entire year, but it still seemed like there was this kind of walking on eggshells kind of component to actually going to the stadium part of the year. So just kind of curious as to what you kind of see for the future unfolding rather.
If I think about for me, it's like I was just saying, kind of getting a little bit more of that away travel in, making the Austin one, hitting the Chicago one, maybe even picking a new city, another Eastern Conference opponent or something, and going after it. But for the stadium, just excited for all the, like I said, the collaborative chants that we've been working on, the new tifo displays we've been working on. There's a lot of opportunity there, and I think we've only kind of scratched the surface as far as what we did last year, and we felt like we got really good results from that last year. And then as a league, I guess for me, it's seeing how much waves like a team like maybe a Nashville is making or something. It's like I want to see the league mix it up a little bit. I want to see some people make some runs. I want to see some new teams come to the fore and continue to start doing well or continue the progress they've been making, right? Obviously, I want Dallas to get back in the playoff hunt. That goes without saying. And I think we got a pretty good setup. So we'll see in that regards. But yeah, I'm anxious to. I'm tired of playing Seattle and Portland in the first round every year. So I'd like to see it mixed up just a little bit, and in that regard, I think it's great. I think that's where you get the competition in the league, right? When everybody, a rising tide lifts all boats. So when we see those new challengers come in, and that's the strength of the league. And we've all seen the signings that are coming in to the league, and I think that it's gaining, more and more visibility worldwide. So really excited to see what that does. I mean, you have a lot of players that are coming in at the same time for a lot of the same money, so you'll be able to track their progress and the team's progress. And I think it's a really exciting time for MLS. So yeah, just continuing to get fresh faces in the playoff run. Dallas make a long run into the playoffs and really be contenders in the West. That would be a top-notch season for me.
Yeah, so life after Pepe is going to be okay, is what you're saying.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I'm excited
obviously,
for life
yeah,
after Pepe.
I bet you are. Katie, you want to talk a little bit about just kind of the coming year for y'all?
Sure. Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, but what I really want is to see more full stadium involvement. Um, Whenever we are able to do things like that, like the Listos Verde chant and things like that, that all the stadium knows, it's incredibly powerful. And the more that we can get everybody involved, I think the more formidable our stadium will be. I think we have incredible people making music and doing chants. And what'll take us to the next level is having everybody bought in. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows this year. Every game, it still seems like half the people are new in the supporter section that are just kind of like they heard the hype and they're showing up and they don't really know what's going on, which is a great opportunity for us. And I think this year we're going to have more repeat people eventually. And I hope we can kind of settle on an identity where everybody feels like they're part of this thing that we're building, and it's not just like, oh, the South End's doing that crazy stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about in the stadium. And as far as supporters groups go, I'm excited about getting more people involved in leadership and kind of onboarded on to how we do things. Like, how do we make tifo? How do we make banners? How do we, propose song ideas, and getting more ideas and more involvement from more people, I think will continue to grow the momentum there. And then for the team, of course, um, would like to see an improvement on the field. I know that Josh Wolf has claimed that playoffs are bust. Um, I really want a home playoff match. I think that would be incredible. Would love to show the league an Austin home playoff match, how crazy we could be. I think we could do an amazing job. So yeah, I want a home playoff match. I want to win Copa Tejas. I want to continue to take a lot of people to away matches. It's going to be a little different this year because last season people were so excited to see the team and they didn't have a home game until June, and so that got a lot of people traveling earlier in the season. This season is a little more spread out. We have a lot of good choices. There's less obvious like, oh, everyone's going to this match or everyone's going to that match. So it'll be interesting to see if we can still draw huge crowds, if we can make that a part of our culture to continue to travel even when it might be a lot easier to just go to Q2, next weekend than travel across the country. I hope that we're still doing that. So yeah, lots to look forward to this year. I'm super excited about it. I don't know if I'm ready for it to be another whirlwind between now and October, but I think it's happening.
Phil,
Yeah,
five
for sure.
minutes, okay, if you can
Uh,
wrap up.
so Katie, on the singing when Austin gets scored on, hopefully that's not going to happen as much this year from an Austin fan
Yeah.
perspective. But is it still the even louder when we're down kind of philosophy, or is there something in the works for a transitional chant when those things happen, or is it just kind of going through the set list as it were?
Well, I'm not really a part of the musical side, so I'll give that disclaimer. But I don't. It's never been a set list. I've kind of sat next to the Murga, and we have Kurt that's kind of calling the songs as they go. Like, okay, now's a good time for this song. Now's a good time for that song. But still, the
Okay.
songs are long enough to where it doesn't feel as reactionary as some would like it to. And I think they are working on transitional and things like that. But if Austin FC would just not get scored on, then we don't have this problem anymore. So I would pause it to Austin FC to just not let in any goals, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Phil, 5 minutes to go, if you can wrap up.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're close to wrapping up here. Just real briefly, Katie, Stephen, just to close, if you could muster one nice thing to say about the other team and the other supporters groups, just in the spirit of camaraderie before we get to the depths of the rivalry this season.
Yeah, at least our front office let you park next to us. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. No, I mean, like, full credit to them. They are rowdy, they are loud, you know what I mean? They do pack that section in their stadium. They did travel well in their first year. I mean, they did a lot of things right, it looks like, and like I said, um, it'll be something to contend against moving forward. So it's on us to match and exceed that energy. So
Yeah, and I would say that going to those matches in Frisco, I grew up in the area. I've been to a lot of matches, and I feel that the ones that I was at against Austin FC were some of the loudest that I've heard those SGs. And so I'm excited to see um, the Rhine, I guess the new area with safe standing, and I hope that you guys in Dallas can continue to get more support from the front office to really make that stadium everything that can be. Because growing up there, I know there's a ton of people who care about soccer. That that area has so many people who play. I played in Plano myself, and so just as a hometown girl from there, I really want to see FC Dallas bring in the kind of fans that I know exist there already, and I hope that um, our rivalry can continue to draw more people to the game, and people can say, "Oh yeah, look what they're doing in Austin." Like, it doesn't have to be this way; it can be different. And people who maybe would have been turned off before because they're like, "Well, I don't want to drive to Frisco or something," can think like, it's worth coming out there, and there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and the team has all these new things happening. So I really do sincerely hope for the new era of SC Dallas too. I think the better that all the teams are, the more exciting our rivalry is going to be, and the more fun it'll be to have banter between fans and things like that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, both of you. Yeah, Katie from Los Verdes, losverdesatx.org, I believe is um, the website. And then Dallas Beer Guardians, you want to just plug your website real quick for North Texas folks who want to come out?
yeah, it's just DallasGuardians.com.
Awesome. All
Come
right.
have a beer.
Well,
Come
thanks so
paint some
much. And then,
banners.
of course, strikertexas.com is where you can find all of us writing about not only Austin and Dallas and Houston and the USL teams, but also a lot of the kind of fan experiences too. So, and again, that's kind of particularly a thing that I like to focus and concentrate on just because it is so unique in American sports, and it is something that I think is very, very essential. So, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, stay tuned. The next panel is going to be about the World Cup, which is going to be like none other for a few different reasons. So we'll hear more about Qatar and what November is going to look like for all of us as fans, including those who might venture to that part of the world.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Striker.
Thank you.
Kaya?